Ladies and gentlemen, to Talking with Monsieur Mateo. And today we have a very special guest who was one of the lead detectives actually, for the assassination attempt on de Gaulle's life, the former president of France. And his name is Claude Lebel. So tell me, Claude, who hired you for this job exactly? Thank you for that warm introduction, Monsieur Mateo. And to answer your question about who hired me, it was Police Judiciaire. And they were the ones that hired me because of my outstanding performance in the detective department in my previous cases. Okay then, so tell me, how did you start your search looking for the man that called himself the Jackal? So basically, to start my search, what I basically did was call in something called the Old Boy Network, which is basically a foreign intelligence that had files on the top political trained assassins in all of Europe. And I just spent so much time looking through all these files in order to find the right, the top-notch assassins that were on file that can be the primary suspect in the investigation. We all know that as cops, it's hard to actually find evidence or at least a lead that leads us to their suspects. And please tell me, or if you can, what was your first lead in the search for the Jackal? So, Monsieur, the way I had found the lead was that after looking through all the files, and narrowing it down to men that were European, basically, European men, Caucasian men. One of my associates actually had found out that a man by the name of Charles Cathrop was a Caucasian man, basically. And at first I didn't think about it, but if you were to take the first three letters of Charles and Cathrop, and basically put them together, it spells out in French and in Spanish, Jackal, which is basically Spanish for jackal. And we had thought that this man named Charles Cathrop was the primary suspect in the case because they basically he had his name Jackal in the actual name. So we started looking through files of this man named Charles Cathrop and looking through passports, identities to see if we can have like at least an identification of this man. And were there any close calls where you almost had the Jackal in possession of authorities? Basically, is how I'll put it. Did you almost have him? Is what I'm trying to tell you, Monsieur Mateo. In order to show you how close we came to actually catching a Jackal, these authorities, these police officers and detectives have been searching this man for years, and they haven't even come close to narrowing that gap. It seemed like that the gap was getting wider. But since they put me on the case, I don't really like tooting my own horn, but when I came on the case, we almost caught the Jackal. We missed him by 1 hour. But the only reason why is because he's been having inside help. An OAS spy was in my detective force. I did not know this at the time, but eventually, doing a couple of sneaky work, I eventually found out that one of the former officers, who I should not name, considering the fact that even though he is an OAS member, I just don't want to put that kind of information out there. He basically was passing information from what I was talking about and how close we were getting onto the Jackal, and that's how he was able to invade us at the time. So after dealing with the situation, we got him off of my detective force and made sure that he doesn't come back and make sure that there's nothing wrong with phones, like nothing was tapped, so that way he could still listen in and pass information to the Jackal. So how was the Jackal able to evade you and the authorities that were chasing him? How many, like, in your guess, how many people were with you after this man? Whew, man. Monsieur, that's a kind of a bombshell right there. There was so many people looking for the Jackal. There was a target on his head. the wanted the money for having his head in jail, or actually having his head, was actually a high price. So there was, I want to say, a couple hundred or a couple thousand authorities looking for this man, and then not including the actual people that wanted him dead because of him being an assassin, doing bad things, and him sort of being involved with the OAS. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to guess, but a couple thousand people probably were looking for this man. Oh, like a couple hundred were looking for him officially. A couple thousand were looking for him unofficially because they wanted the bounty money. So how would you know that the Jackal would target the Gaul on Liberation Day? Weren't there any other days that he would be exposed to, like any other later days or any other sooner days? How would you know that it was this specific day? Me knowing that the Jackal was going to attack the Gaul on Liberation Day was sort of a guess, but yet it was a high percentage of actually knowing that he was going to attack the Gaul, because we weren't sure when he was going to attack. The Liberation Day was the closest day to us, basically, and going over some files on assassins, basically found out that there are some assassins that want to get the job done quickly, but there are others that want to span out the time and just basically make this person paranoid that they're going to assassinate. So it was kind of a hard guess, but Liberation Day, it was when the day that the Gaul was going to fully expose himself. There was no bodyguards around him. There were bodyguards that around the area, making sure no one comes in with suspicious looks, but there was no one on stage with him because he had to give a speech to the war veterans that served the country. So that Liberation Day was the only day where he's going to really be exposed, and which would have been a perfect opportunity for the Jackal to attack. And during this Liberation Day, what exactly were you doing in order to catch him? What I was basically doing during Liberation Day was I was walking around the area. I was making sure that the security guards were reporting to me who they saw and anyone that looked suspicious or anyone that kind of fit the description of the Jackal that we put out the day before. And most of them didn't see anything suspicious. And I was walking around making sure that everyone had basically not seen anything suspicious. But it all kind of changed towards the end of my route when I came across this one security guard that said a man with a crutch, an old war veteran, was on a crutch with one leg that walked past. And he didn't think of anything suspicious because it's Liberation Day where you honor the veterans that served in the war. So he didn't think much of it. He thought an old war veteran from World War II came by and wanted to check up on him. And my instincts told me that that was not the case. That the Jackal was going to make his move that day. And after hearing about the description of the man, one leg, crutches, I kind of put two and two together, kind of figured out that the Jackal was going to use a crutch as his weapon, that his concealed weapon was a crutch, and which would have been perfect, especially since the disguise is an old war veteran with a crutch to walk on that needs support, so no one would think much of it because people are going to think an old war veteran is there not to cause any harm because he knows what it's been through. But that day it wasn't the case. The Jackal was not an old war veteran. He was a trained assassin who was going to kill the Gaul as we've been through this. I see. So you encountered the man known as the Jackal. So what happened when you confronted the Jackal in the hotel that you found him in? Me and the young cop, the young police officer that saw the old man go through the security block, told me which way he went. And I had him come with me, and after we confronted him, I just hate to say it, but the young man died, and it was a tragic death. The the Jackal was already set up with a sniper rifle, and um, well, unfortunately, he went in first and got shot by the Jackal straight in the chest, which killed him on impact. And it was just a terrible thing to see. I haven't seen people die in front of me before, and I just felt so terrible. And I at that moment I wanted to cry, but then I realized where I was, and I looked at the Jackal. I looked him dead center in the eye, and he kept me trained on him. It's like he was trying to confuse me or at least keep me distracted. And I realized that he was reloading. The young man had fallen on his side after he got shot, and he had a machine gun exposed. And quick thinking is what saved my life, because the Jackal tried firing the shot after I dove down to the gun to get it from the young man's body. The bullet missed me, and when I pulled up, the Jackal was still reloading for his third shot to fire at me. I'm not sure how many shots he had on him, but I basically took the machine gun and just held it in front of me, and I just shot him, had the whole magazine into him just to make sure he was dead. I was afraid for my life. I was wide-eyed. I couldn't think straight until I heard the click of the gun, showing that it was out of bullets. You personally killed the man, and yet you never killed the man before in your life. So how did that feel? Uh, just killing a man just felt terrible. It felt terrible just to watch a man die in front of me, especially a young man, probably in like his early 20s, just die in front of me. But being able to kill a man, it was just so hard to take in. It was just so much, and it felt like I was gonna lose my mind at that point. Cause at one point, the man I killed the person that was trying to help me, and if at that point, like I said, I felt terrible. I was shaking. I was like a little dog. I was shaking. I was so tensed up, and it felt like I was gonna throw up in a crime scene. I didn't feel so good at that point, and I had to get out of there, not actually leave the crime scene, but I just had to like step out the door and get some fresh air because it was just so hard to take it all in. I see. So when you went to go bury the man, did you personally go to his burial, or did you not bother with this assassin? To answer your question, Monsieur, I did go to the burial because I just wanted even though he was an assassin, he really wasn't. I didn't know the man, and I killed him, so I went over there to pay my respects, at least as much as an assassin deserved, and as much as a man that I didn't know deserved. So I went there, and we actually had to change the situation. We had said that it was a tourist, a foreign tourist, that had died in a car crash here when he was visiting France. The way we did it is that we had to put him in an unmarked tomb, because afterwards, where the Jackal was hiding out to assassinate the Gaul, later comes in the man Charles Cathrop, who we thought that the original man, the Jackal, was Charles Cathrop. And after finding out that Charles Cathrop has been fishing for a while, out of town basically, we were shocked and we were dumbfounded. And sorry, folks, it seems like that's all the time we had today. And why not give a round of applause for Claude Lebel coming on today after 10 years of being the head detective of Paris. Give him a round of applause, will you? Thank you, Monsieur Mathieu, for having me on your show. It was nice being here, and I actually had a lot of fun talking to you, because it just felt good to talk to someone about the situation that happened to me 10 years ago. So just thank you again for having me on your show, and it was a pleasure being here, and thank you all for coming today and just watching me talk about what happened for the assassination tip on de Gaulle's life, and hopefully someday I don't die as a tragic death as that young boy.